The crypto market is continuing to sell off, and a lot of people are wondering, is there any sign of this ending at some point? And I want to say one thing, right? The main thing that we are focused on, especially around the holiday timeframe, is that we typically see a sell-off leading into the holidays. This is where people start to take some profits to buy, gifts or, maybe even cover some expenses for the holiday season. But on top of that, it's a mix of that combined with institutional manipulation, major leverage traders getting wiped out as well. And I'm not really panicking at this moment. I obviously want to see some sort of bullish momentum form on the chart. We have yet to see any sign of strength just yet on Bitcoin, especially even on the lower time frame structure. We started to see a little bit of a bounce earlier, like yesterday, but it wasn't really anything. It was short-lived. Now, the main thing that I have been seeing a lot of people post on X is this chart essentially showing the structure going back here to like January all the way into April. And they were like, all right, well, look we did this and we're starting to do this here again. So that means that we're going to have this big run up, right? And it kind of reminds me back to when a lot of people were saying like, oh, XRP is going to this dollar amount because it's going to repeat the same exact pattern. We typically never see that. We never see that actually happen. So the main thing that I am focused on with Bitcoin here, and just kind of zooming out, is are we losing crucial support? Are we losing massive levels of support yet? No, we really aren't. Most of this sell-off was exaggerated the second that we lost the prior highs going back to January and February of this year, and that was right around roughly 102.2K. We knew that if we lost these highs, that it would lead to significant sell pressure, which is exactly what we are now seeing in the market. And it's definitely dragging things down with it, like for example, XRP. Now with XRP, the crucial level for us to maintain is $1.90 on the weekly candle close. We do not want to close below this at all on the weekly. And as long as this is held, we should be looking pretty good regardless of the negative price action. Now, if we do lose this, where are we looking at next being the next target? Well, that would be the resistance on the weekly going all the way back to 2021, right around $1.56, which is why I want to see us maintain this low, and I want to start to see some sort of sign of life on some of these charts, including, of course, XRP's chart. Now, what could definitely help XRP out is the narratives, the catalyst behind it. We know that the ETF has been very successful. We'll talk about that here in a moment. And we also know that there is a big waiting list of additional ETF announcements that are going to happen within the next 24 hours, which we'll talk about as well. So let's actually look at a few things. Number one, I've been seeing a lot of people asking me a question like, oh, Nick, if the ETF has been so successful, why is the price still going down? I've addressed this a million times, right? When you have an asset the size of XRP, and again, this isn't, telling you like, oh, hey, XRP is never going to move again because it requires a lot more capital. But when you have an asset the size of XRP, when you see $200+ million in inflows from ETFs, it's not going to really push the price. But if we have $200 million coming from this ETF, that ETF, this ETF, all of a sudden you start to see the big picture where ETFs can lead to price action swings to the upside. I've always said, and even leading up to the Canary ETF approval, it was not going to have an immediate effect on XRP, right? So this is where we really kind of look at inflows becoming a big deal, and we start to look at the performance of some of the smaller issuers. Canary is a smaller issuer technically in terms of an ETF, which so far has been very successful, which tells us the larger names are going to see even more inflows than Canary, which is very bullish to think about. Crypto exchanges are not safe. It does not matter the size of the exchange either. Bybit, the fourth largest crypto exchange by trading volume, recorded one of the largest crypto hacks in history back in February, where $1.4 billion was stolen. And if we're looking at some of the top 10 crypto hacks in history, most of these are resulting from major exchanges. So where do we store our crypto outside of cold storage devices? Well, ITrustCapital offers premium custody accounts, which is one of the safest places to store your crypto because these are fully closed loop systems, which are designed to isolate and protect assets. And the best part about this is that if you are holding digital assets on their platform, they can only be withdrawn in USD linked to a US bank account, which means no external wallet connections can happen, which reduces the exposure to phishing or unauthorized transfers. So if you guys do want to tap into one of the safest places to lock up your crypto, you could sign up utilizing my link down in the description below right now, where you deposit $1,000 and you get a free $100 funding bonus today. Now, leading up to today, and especially going over the last 48 hours, we have been seeing increased sell pressure. We have here from Coin Bureau, XRP whales dumped 200 million. Whales unloaded 200 million XRP within 48 hours of the ETF launch, dragging price down despite strong inflows. Now, is it just XRP? No, right? We got to think about the day that XRP had the ETF approval, we witnessed Bitcoin completely lose that crucial high, right? We started to see that increased sell pressure right upon the announcement of the XRP ETF, which I found very surprising. We talked about it. We addressed it. Is it manipulation? You could argue it. Is it to suppress XRP? Sure, you could argue that as well. But the main thing that we are looking at here is no matter how successful this ETF is, with the market in its current position, I'm not expecting anything to really move the price action significantly until we start to see, strength form again on charts and we start to see a big bounce. We want to see some sort of momentum picking up in the bulls' favor. So far, it's been bears really leading this move. Now, again, on top of the whales dumping XRP, what about recently, right? What about the last week in terms of ETF flows? Well, if we go over here to Cointelegraph, which, by the way, we already know that Cointelegraph has been pretty negative against XRP in recent years. Now it seems as though their tune is changing, and we have here update. Spot ETF flows last week saw Bitcoin outflows of 1.11 billion and ETH outflows of 728, almost $730 million. So both Bitcoin and Ethereum experienced major outflows. Meanwhile, Solana saw 46.34 million in inflows, and XRP saw over $243.5 million in inflows. This is a very big vote of confidence. Obviously, yes, XRP did see the first ETF launch, so we knew that it was going to be successful, but over $240+ million is a major sign of, number one, demand, and also institutional adoption, because again, these are institutional ETFs. Now, the biggest thing about this is XRP is making headlines now. So we look at additional names lining up for XRP ETFs. We think about BlackRock, we think about Fidelity, we think about all of these big names that have a Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF. If I was them, I would be looking at, well, where can we make more money out of crypto? Because you got to remember that these big names, they love to squeeze this space for everything that it has. It's the same exact reason why most of these major names have been squeezing other additional asset classes and markets for years. They want to make as much money as possible. So if I'm looking at this and I'm seeing Bitcoin and Ethereum really kind of, dimming out, right? Their lights are dimming and XRP is shining bright. I'm looking at XRP. I'm thinking about, all right, well, we need to have some sort of product here for XRP because it's been so successful. Which is why I do think that at some point in time, these big names will line up for, an XRP ETF. Now, talking about the ETF itself, how is it doing? Well, so far, and obviously Monday's, update is not yet here, but we do have over 120, almost 121 million XRP, equivalent to $275 million. So since last week, we've added almost $30+ million in terms of this ETF for XRP, which is very good. Again, like I said, Canary is not a big name. And just looking at the ETF today, how is it performing? It's not too bad, ultimately. Volume is about 444,000, which is pretty significant. The average volume on, a day-to-day basis here that's recorded is about roughly 1.7 million. But just going off of the 444,000 that is recorded today, I mean, we're thinking about roughly over $10+ million in flows today, which is very, very good. Now, if we continue to keep this pace throughout the day, it could lead to well over $1+ million in shares yet again. We have over here from Chad Steingraber, at current rate, XRPC is looking to do about roughly 1.9, almost 2 million in share volume for its third day. That would be another projected 11 million XRP to be acquired by the Canary Fund. This is day 3. And yeah, I mean, listen, if we are thinking about this, I've been seeing a lot of people saying like, oh, this seems low. Like, for an example, this comment down here says, seems low. You sure about the 11 million estimate? Again, what's crazy about this is people will say that this is very low, but they're not looking at this, the size of Canary. Canary is not a big name. In fact, this is their most successful ETF launch to date. So if we're thinking about that and we're looking at the additional ETF filings, which, by the way, guess what? It's the 17th going into the 18th, Franklin Templeton. That's the deadline for Franklin Templetons. Look at the assets under management here. Canary Capital had 200 million assets under management. Franklin Templeton has 1.5 trillion. This is the difference in size for some of these names. It is extremely bullish to look at just this week alone at some of the names that will be, we'll see an update with some of these names this week. So let's look at this. All right, Bitwise is also here, $5 billion in assets under management. The 20th is also this week with 21 shares, $7 billion in assets under management. We don't know when Wisdom Trees is going to have their deadline, but we know it's sometime this month. They have 113 billion. We also have Grayscale, right? November, we don't know a date yet, 40 billion. November 22nd, that's Saturday. I'm not too sure if we're going to see an update with CoinShares until next week, but they have about 5 billion in assets under management. Outside of that, Franklin Templeton, 1.5 trillion, and the rest are already live. But think about the names here compared to the size of Canary. Canary has $200 million in assets under management compared to some of these other names, even Bitwise at 5 billion. That's a significant difference in size. So if we're looking at this logically, okay, if Canary's recording the amount of volume that it's already doing, and we have some of these additional names here lining up that have a significant larger balance sheet than Canary, imagine how good the XRP ETF performance will be on some of these other, platforms with these issuers. This is what gets me very bullish about the upcoming XRP ETFs. I know that so far this hasn't been successful in the terms of, oh, hey, it hasn't led to price action yet. And again, it's not going to. I've talked about this, right? But the thing is that if we are starting to see, let's just say, 5 million XRP gets locked up a day from Canary. Okay, that's just one name. Then you mix in Bitwise, you mix in 21 shares, Wisdom Tree, Grayscale, CoinShares, all of these names, all of a sudden you're starting to see even more XRP being locked up. You're starting to see even more volume in. And remember, these ETFs, they don't affect spot value immediately. They take a little bit of time for the orders to be filled. OTC, it doesn't matter if it's OTC or not. It will lead to price swings after we start to see volume picking up. But I'm definitely looking forward to Franklin Templeton's because this is technically going to debut tomorrow. It's very similar to the Canary ETF, right? This is a $1.5 trillion management company that's going to be launching EZRP. This is a spot-based XRP ETF. And this is going to be happening tomorrow. So 24 hours away from this launch. This is going to be very interesting to see how it performs, especially during a down market, which is very important to focus on, by the way, because again, XRP's ETF with Canary has been very successful in a down market. So looking at this logically, if they are successful in a down market, imagine how these ETFs perform when the market bounces back, which I do assume the market will soon bounce back. We've seen this price action before. It's not the end of the world. Obviously, we need to focus on some of these key levels to hold. With Bitcoin, I just want to see some sort of sign of life. I mean, so far, this thing has just been, continuously selling off. I'm looking at a few key levels for Bitcoin to hold and completely fill. Obviously, like 86.3K. About roughly, 93.2K. This is the level that we were looking at Bitcoin really kind of filling completely, which is those highs going all the way back to March. And then also the lows going all the way back to like December. This is major support and resistance being tapped. It would be a complete gap fill as well, which will be very good to see, because again, on the weekly, we have a fair value gap here going all the way back to April, and then also going all the way back to like roughly like the beginning of April as well. So this gap being filled would be pretty bullish for Bitcoin, and then I would be expecting a big reversal from that level if, you know, we are still going to be in a bull market. Losing this gap and completely, you know, breaking through the support of, you know, March, that would be a big sign of bearish price action, building momentum, and most likely ending the cycle. But I'm not expecting that to happen, but it's something that we need to focus on. But the main thing that I am looking at here is just how these ETFs perform, how they launch as well. I think that tomorrow is definitely going to be a big day for XRP, because this is one of the largest issuers on this, you know, sheet. They have the largest amount of assets under management. They are the biggest name on this sheet as well. So, you know, I'm definitely locked in on this ETF announcement. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on, because I'm more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.